Welcome to the Big Time Strength Podcast, featuring small school strength coaches making the big time where they're at. I am your host, Gage Rozier. Today's episode is sponsored by TeamBuildr. TeamBuildr provides strength conditioning software to athletics programs around the country. Whether you write your own programs or want access to over 100 templates, TeamBuildr can make your program more efficient, more accountable, and smarter when it comes to measuring your team's effort in the weight room. Visit their website and start a 14-day free trial at teambuildr.com. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in today. I'm really excited about this one. It's a kind of a different format. I have two guests on today. I have Coach Alli Jenicke. She is the Director of Athletic Performance at Luther College, and I have my former GA, Coach Clifton, who is the newly appointed Assistant Athletic Director at Luther College. And I have them both on and get both of their thoughts on a lot of the typical questions we kind of ask our guests, and then I thought it was interesting just to maybe ask Alli and Miles as well about the transition. I mean, Miles started up there in February, so Alli gets in a little bit on how she onboarded Miles, if you want to call it that, and then Miles as well about just that process and what he learned along the way. And maybe as you listen, you can, if you're a director or a head spot bringing on new GAs, maybe you can pick up some new stuff. Or if you're a young coach heading into a new position, maybe Miles has some tips for you on how to make that transition as easy as possible. Hope you enjoy the show. Today's resource review is brought to you by Optimum Nutrition. Protein is key to muscle recovery, and Gold Standard 100% Whey, the world's best-selling whey protein powder, provides 24 grams of protein that mixes easily and using just a glass and spoon. Gold Standard 100% Whey is made in Optimum Nutrition's state-of-the-art facilities in Aurora, Illinois, and is banned substance tested by Informed Choice. Through Optimum Nutrition's athletic program, you can also get Pro Grainer for big athletes looking to become even bigger and ready to eat protein snacks, including protein crisp bars, cake bites, protein wafers, and protein almonds. After dominating the sports nutrition industry for over 30 years, newly created Optimum Nutrition Athletics brings that same trust and quality that knows how to put convenient options for protein in the hands of athletes who desire to become bigger, stronger, and better at their sport. Okay, guys, today's resource review, I'm looking at an article from EliteFTS.com by Ashley Jones. It's called The 6 Pillars of Excellence today, and I just want to kind of read through the six, maybe a note or two that I took from each one, and he's got a couple quotes at the end that I really like from John Wooden. So, number one, hard work. First pillar of excellence is hard work. But not just working hard, but working smart as well. The planning that goes into each session and attention to detail and skill development is important. I know for me personally, when I am prepared for the groups coming in, they just obviously flow a lot smoother, and I think that's a great point to not just work hard, but work smart as well. Make sure you have a purpose to your work. Number two is enjoyment. If it stops being fun, why keep doing it? And remember why you get into strength conditioning in the first place and stay true to that. There's going to be those days where stuff's not going your way. Maybe an athlete gets injured or whatever it is. It happened to me a couple weeks ago. But it's in those times where you got to think back to why you got into strength conditioning and to think about the good days ahead and how you need to fix your problems if you got them. Number three, loyalty. Loyalty to yourself, each other, and the team is extremely important in developing a culture. He has a comment called disagree but commit. If you do not like something, say it up front. Just a cancer in culture, I've read some other places, is people who talk about each other, not to each other. So don't whisper in the background. Just erodes the confidence in others and throughout your whole culture. Number four, team first. Before you say or do anything, consider if it is the best interest of the team and whether or not it is going to help us move forward as a unified group. Hold yourself accountable to the purpose of the team. Do the right thing all the time. That's a lot of behaviors we're trying to drive with our athletes here, as he hits on in that team first part of his article here. Number five is integrity. I'm going to read the whole quote here on what he says integrity is, and I think it's pretty powerful. Integrity is the integration of outward actions and inner values. A person with integrity does what they say they will do in accordance with their values, beliefs, and principles. A person of integrity can be trusted because he or she never veers from inner values, even when it might be easy to do so. A key to integrity, therefore, is consistency of actions that are viewed as honest and truthful to inner values. It is the glue of moral character. Love that quote. Number 6, respect. It's earned and never given lightly. I think a lot of people, myself included in this, as I had my head position early on, I wanted people to respect me because I had the position, and that's just low level leadership. If you look at John Maxwell's pillars of leadership, that's low level. It's got to be earned, and that's by building relationships. Your thoughts, words, and actions in synchrony with the values of honor and trust is the key to earning respect. All right, couple quotes. I'll just go one. John Wooden, the test of a man's character is what he does when no one's watching. And I love that quote. We try to get that with our athletes, talk to them about, it's easy to be the guy in the weight room when you got a coach. It's easy to be the guy out on the field at practice when everybody's watching, but are you the guy in the cafeteria eating right? Are you the guy going to bed taking care of yourself? Are you the guy taking care of your teammates outside of here? It's a powerful thought we try to drive home with our athletes here as well. All right, guys, enough from me. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Again, Coach Alli Jenicke and Coach Miles Clifton from Luther College. Enjoy. Hey, guys, welcome to the Big Time Strength Podcast. I'm excited today. It's a little different format. I'm having Coach Alli Jenicke and Coach Miles Clifton, who is the Director of Athletic Performance and the Assistant Athletic Director of Athletic Performance at Luther College. And I'm having them both on today to kind of talk about their program. And Miles is a new coach up there. He was my GA for 2 years here at Jewell College, and I'm just really interested in see how the transition's going and share some of that information with you guys. So let's get it started here. Alli, maybe kick us off by explaining a little bit of your background, and then we'll let Miles take over as well.
Yeah, sounds good. So I did my undergraduate degree at Kansas State University. Being there, I knew that I really wanted to stay around kind of the athletic world. Had a lot of meetings with my counselor and ended up kind of decided on this track for me. Immediately went and got signed up with an Olympic internship there at K-State. Quick, 5 months later, I got hired on as a graduate assistant at Penn University. Coach John Haugen there took a chance on me, which I'm forever grateful for. I was super green. I mean, I didn't know anything at that point, so him bringing me on, I learned a lot, needless to say, in that first year. We were also outsourced as the local high school strength coaches at that time. So I worked at Pella High School, and connections came up with Jeff Jones, who was here at Luther as the head, and he needed an assistant. Haugen gave him my name. I applied. We did the interview process, and he ended up bringing me on as his, at that time it was an intern position. It was not a full-time, part-time position. A year later, that turned into a full-time position, and now I'm here in the director role.
Awesome. Coach Clifton, you want to give us a little of your background?
Yeah, sure. So for me, I've got a little bit of a more unusual route into the field than what most people would be kind of accustomed to, I guess. Didn't roll straight in from my undergrad, was actually completely unrelated undergrad. Worked in the agriculture field for a couple of years after college. Realized pretty quickly that wasn't for me. Had always been pretty passionate about athletics and the training aspect of that, and so decided to kind of take a leap of faith, quit my job, sell my house, go back to the life of a poor college student. Started my first internship at Northwest Missouri State under Joe Quinlan up there. Going to one-up Alli a little bit. Was only, I think, interning for about a month before got hooked up with that GA with you, which for people who don't know, we've known each other since we were kids. So I guess I had a little more of an interview process than just that 1 month. But yeah, interned for a summer up there with Joe, and then started right into that graduate assistant position with you at Jewell. On a 10-month contract there, so had that next summer off where I wasn't going to be working with athletes at Jewell, and was able to get on doing an internship out at Harvard in Boston with Coach Frazier, Coach Mullen, Coach Oz, Beth, and Sarge. That whole crew out there, they were awesome. forever grateful for that experience. It was a grind, but I learned a ton about kind of myself and just the coaching profession in general. And then, came back to Jewell, had another, 6 months there before this position came open up here at Luther, and have been up here now about 3 weeks. I think this started my 4th week, so still pretty green up here, but learning something new every day. So.
Awesome. So, Alli, why don't you explain a little bit, how would you describe the culture of your program, and within that, maybe talk a little bit about your mission of your program, and maybe some of the core values you guys talk about with your athletes?
Sure. So the culture of the program that I'm at least trying to implement here, body language is huge, mentality, discipline, and teamwork. All that stuff's just as important as the actual lift and training sessions are going through. We coach, don't be casual. So we're fortunate enough to have a big area up here for our weight room. So, if you got something in the dumbbell pit and the platform, we want you running back and forth. It's not, not creating the habit of just kind of being casual and lackadaisical in here. Everything we do in here is with a purpose. So another thing that we really challenge kids with is to kind of get outside of themselves, and during the lift, who can they bring up with them? It's not just about getting themselves better. It's, hey, how can I get maybe somebody that I know is going through a tough time, or just somebody that's quiet, kind of up to par with the rest of our team here.
And Coach Clifton, won't you are there some observations you've already had that you can, what's the difference between that culture compared to culture here at William Jewell College? You don't have to say my culture sucks, but hopefully just maybe some observations you've seen just from culture to culture.
Yeah, so, I guess what's made this transition pretty easy for me is, while the terminology might be a little bit different on how we phrase what we want out of our culture, they're essentially the same thing. It's a lot of high energy, being a teammate. We talk up here about bringing up somebody else. The be a teammate thing is one that we used all the time. Those things aren't really any different, I wouldn't say. I would say, I don't know. I feel like we've never really had to coach effort with anybody up here, which has definitely, even just in the 2 years I was at Jewell, that was changing quite a bit. I know from the time you've gotten there to where they're at now, the effort thing has changed quite a bit. And it just even more so up here, I feel like that's, not something I have to coach a whole lot. I'm coaching a lot of technique. As far as these guys putting in the hard work, it's never really something I have to worry about. So, not that I didn't see that at Jewell. It's just maybe even something I worry about less here than I would have had to at times there. So.
Awesome. So, one of the taglines of the show, and it's not just a show, it's one of the big cliches, but is extremely relevant and important, is, making the big time where you're at. And it's kind of the whole theme of this show. So maybe, Alli, talk a little bit about, what are some ways or way that you think you're making the big time where you're at there at Luther College?
Yeah, so, when I think of athletic performance at Luther College, I think of the conference that we're in and some of the other schools in this conference, and Central College comes to mind. They got a really good strength program down there. So something that, if you've heard the Dabo Sweeney interview when he's, in front of the board for the first time as a coach, they're like, what can we do to be like Bama? And his response is, we're going to make Bama want to be like us. So kind of trying to have that mentality about it, and always doing what we can to be the absolute best here. With our intern meeting just wrapping up here this morning, I told them having them around is a huge component for us. It allows us to do our job so much better. We have about 8 interns that are really, really heavily involved with our teams. A lot of them run teams themselves. We just do the program and they implement for us. So allowing us to do our job better, really focus in on the teams that we have, and also the teams that they're running are going to get more attention having them versus 2 burnt out full-time coaches all the time. So those are 2 things that come to mind. The other thing that comes to mind is the individualized training programs that our athletes get here. Now, I know you guys have Team Builder down there. We learned that this last programming phase that he had to go back to Excel here. But, making a big deal about their training card and making a really big deal about competing every day they're in here. And they're going to have, by the time they're a senior, they're going to have a whole folder of their progress right in front of them. So, again, making a huge deal about that, teaching them the importance of that and how to track and how to compete, and then just something to give them pride and confidence in.
Yeah, I bet it's pretty powerful. When those seniors leave and they have a whole stack. Are you talking like from freshman to senior year in theory, they'd have all their cards?
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. I'm sure.
Yeah, that's like some of the women athletes come up and they're like, oh my gosh, I was holding 15s. What the heck was I doing? Like that light bulb moment.
Right. That's great. And then let's talk a little bit too, maybe both of you can speak on this. You might have a couple different approaches or ideas. What are some ways you help build team camaraderie and develop leaders within the weight room?
Yeah, so I guess I'll kind of start this one. And this is something that we stole, straight from our time at Jewell, and I know we kind of took it at Jewell straight from Joe at Northwest, is the like the off-season team competitions, break all of our athletes within a team down into individualized teams, and we're finding some way to compete at least weekly in the weight room, if not multiple times a week. These guys are athletes first, and I think we see some of their best qualities come out whenever you put them in a competitive setting. So anytime we can do that, the guys start to kind of rally around each other, and I think really does a good job of starting to build that team camaraderie a little bit. And when you put guys in those situations too, you can kind of strategically place guys you want to see step up into leadership roles throughout the different teams and give them an opportunity to be challenged a little bit in some leadership roles and trying to pick up some of the other guys that are on that team that maybe don't quite have it figured out yet. It turns up the intensity. The guys love it, and I just think it makes the weight room a fun place for those guys to be. So that's easily my favorite way to kind of go about doing that.
Yeah, the guys definitely enjoy their Friday competitions. Some things that come to mind for me is I like to do a lot of you go, I go methodology in here, as in, you get paired up, one guy's going through something, the other guy's counting his reps. One that just kind of reinforces like the discipline of obviously doing everything to a T, but just building up, now you have to get outside of your comfort zone, and I'm forcing you to think about somebody other than yourself here. So you go, I go method's been good with some of our teams that have struggled. Putting upperclassmen with underclassmen for some of the bigger lifts. I really preach, we want you guys to help us coach. There's 2 of us and 30 of you guys. Like, help us out here. If you see something that looks bad, correct it. Coach each other up. And on that, don't be sensitive if somebody's coaching you. Understand that we all have the same goal here and we're all trying to get better. I think that builds the trust and honest relationships needed to have a successful team. Something that I actually just started today, and this is from Brian DeVrent down at Kentucky. I got this from him, but kind of that camaraderie. I had volleyball do it. I'm going to have women's basketball do it later, but had them line up, face each other. Miles said that you guys kind of did this at Jewell, ask them a question of the day. And then something that Coach DeVrent did is, they're going to hug. They're going to go full-on frontal double arm hug, like it's not, no side hugs, no awkward. You're going for it here, and just kind of working on that touch theory. I know Bill Knowles talks a lot about it, but some of the more successful teams professionally tend to have more physical contact throughout their competitions. So, again, the idea being to build that trust between each other, build that human connection, interaction, and get to know each other a little bit more, a little deeper level at the same time.
No, I love that, and I love the you go, I go as well. I mean, we see athletes all the time, and I'm sure you have as well, that, there's an athlete in front of them obviously doing something wrong or obviously is doing the wrong reps or whatever, and you got a teammate right behind him that's just not paying attention. Either he doesn't care or he's not paying attention. I think that's a great way to keep them involved in the process, and again, like you said, get them outside themselves as well. So I might borrow that. I think I like that little go-to technique. It's good, Coach. The next one here, again, I'll have both of you speak on this. What is maybe a tough hurdle you've had to climb over, an obstacle you've had along the way in your career so far in strength conditioning? Maybe talk about how you've overcome a specific challenge.
You go first.
Sure.
Okay. The first thing I guess that comes to my mind is, typically I would probably say space, but I know we are pretty fortunate up here with space. Now, right now with 30 inches of snow on the ground, it's getting tight, but we have a nice turf room. We have an indoor-ish facility, indoor track. So I won't use the space cop out too much here. Now it's no longer a hurdle, but when Coach Jones and I first got here, our program's a little unique. We do not back squat. We do not Olympic lift. And it's not to say that those things don't work. I don't think that they work here for what we have. So initially, and even some of the freshman football guys, as soon as I get back, they're like, "Oh, Coach, what's your thoughts? What are your thoughts?" Like trying to, poke the bear. "No, can we get this rolling here?" And it's like, guys, I'm sorry, I got to tell you, like that stuff's staying. That's stuff that I still totally believe in. So that, like I said, initially, that's kind of the shell shock hurdle that I'm working with.
Yeah, so for me, like I said, it's not necessarily a specific instance or hurdle that I've overcome, but just coming into the field when I did and kind of the unusual path, I felt like I was kind of behind the eight ball a little bit, just in general, from not just kind of a knowledge programming perspective, but just working with coaching athletes. I didn't have 2 or 3 years of intern experience before I was stepping into that graduate assistant role. So I felt like I really had to play catch up a little bit. And kind of the best way I found that I've been able to make myself grow and develop quickly is I was willing to throw myself into some uncomfortable situations, just kind of full force, just jump head first into it. While that makes for some kind of awkward interactions probably right off the bat, it just forced me to adapt really quick. And I was really fortunate to have, every stop that I've had along the way, whether it was with Joe up at Northwest or the guys out at Harvard or with you, whether it was out of necessity or out of design by the coaching staff, you all have forced me into those same kind of situations. I know especially there at Jewell, like you were the only guy on staff at the time when I came on, so it was out of pure necessity that I just had to jump right in and kind of figure it out as I went. So that's been just kind of a huge thing for me, is just being willing to get uncomfortable, because that's something I didn't do a lot in my life kind of leading up to where I'm at now. But it's something I seek out actively now over the last 3 years, and it's helped me grow a ton. So just be willing to get out of your comfort zone and attack challenges head on and just kind of learn as you go.
Yeah, and I'll back you up on that one for our listeners. Coach Miles, Clifton, and I, him and I lived a mile apart, and we were neighbors. We're out in the farmland and small town, and for him to move to Boston for 3 months in the summer is no small thing. And I think it's such a great thing you talked about there for young coaches growing up to just go all in on it and see what happens, and to be able to – I just saw the change in him from that first year to coming back the second year. He was a completely different coach, and it's because he put himself out there, and it's a big part of the reason why he's stepping in that role he's in now and is starting to be successful. So let's move on here. Let's change it up a little bit. Let's talk training philosophy. So Alli, give us a rundown. You mentioned a little bit. You guys don't back squat or Olympic lift. I'm sure that's a big part of your training philosophy, but maybe just give a little background of kind of the entire view on training.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's very, I try to be super orthopedically sound, risk versus reward in here. It's not, you're not married to one specific movement, you're married to the result that you might get from that specific movement, and, there's different ways to get different things. I think if there's one thing that people are learning in this field right now, it's that. There's a million different ways to do something, and everybody's entitled to it. So more pulling than pushing. People talk about balanced programming. I like the idea of unbalanced programming. We're always going to pull more than we're going to push. Train the muscles, not in the mirrors, and build up the brakes a little bit more. We don't do like movement screenings of any type here. It's more of a coaching eye, and also just assuming a general assumption that, you know, kids are going to come in and they're going to have underdeveloped hamstrings and posterior chains and torso strength and posterior shoulder, like all those problem areas that we always see and that we get typically, you know, T-spine extension especially, those things that we might get from the screenings. To be honest, it's just kind of an assumption from the get-go, and we start to address it the day they get here.
So I'm going to go back to your no back squat and no Olympic lifting. Just real quick, walk us through, you know, you got an athlete, first day on campus. What's your main lower body, whether it's a bilateral or a single leg, whatever you want to talk about. What's your main progression as you work that athlete through your program?
Yeah, so I'll use 2 a week with athletes at the beginning especially. We'll do trap bar deadlift, so we'll still get some kind of bilateral. We have some belt box squats, which have been awesome to implement some more bilateral, some heavy bilateral stuff in. But as far as like single leg unilateral variation, we'll get really aggressive and we'll get really heavy. You know, it might start out as just a goblet standing split squat to an Eric's pad, really working the pattern and focusing on, you know, exploding up in good posture and all those things. Might progress to a contralateral, 1 dumbbell, 2 dumbbell. We could go reverse lunge. After that, probably looking at a rear foot elevated, 1, 2 dumbbell progression, you know, with tempos and all that stuff like thrown in. Obviously, progressions are a long process. Sure. Nothing's quick overnight, but we'll get on the bar. We have some safety squat bars here. We'll do a little hand supported. So as far as spinal loading, they'll get some of it there, but that's going to be kind of reserved for more of our super detailed, high-performing teams, just because, you know, things can go wrong when you got 400 pounds in a split stance position, so we got to be able to really trust them to put that on there.
So instead of like the Olympic lifts, are you doing med ball throws, jumps? Explain a little bit what you're doing there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll do speed work, hammer speed work with these kids. We'll do an acceleration day. Football's got a top speed day, but most teams are going to have acceleration and change of direction. With that, they'll do some jump training maybe before their speed session or built in if it's like a power speed circuit right now is kind of what football's got going on. So they'll do some potentiation stuff where they might have hurdles to a pogo to a 20-yard dash. That type of situation. In the weight room, I like, you know, the potentiation that you can get in here also. Their heaviest unilateral we might pair with a single leg broad jump to 2-leg land. So we get a lot of jump training in place of that. We'll do some weighted jumps. We have these awesome things called power jumpers that I'm not sure are even made anymore, but they're basically a portable Vertimax. They strap to your ankles, up around your neck, back to the other ankle. So to be able to pull those out and do like approach jumps or broad jumps or some of these more, you know, I don't want to say sports-specific movements, but not just straight up and down like you would do on a Vertimax.
Awesome. And then Coach Clifton, talk a little bit about the transition into a new training system, because that's, I mean, we're pretty classic here. We're starting to implement some of those things she's talking about, and I'm starting to push that way a little bit, but certainly not to that degree. Maybe talk a little bit about how that transition has been for you.
Yeah, so the biggest thing for me coming in was just making sure that I came in with an open mind and like no preconceived notions of like this is the only way to train athletes, which again for me is a little bit easier because I, you know, relatively new in the field still. I definitely don't have this inflated sense of an ego where I think that I know everything there is to know about training. So that has helped me a little bit, I think. But like I said, just coming in and being open-minded and just kind of assessing the program for what it was. It's definitely been a learning curve. Just, I mean, not even from the sense of going to more unilateral stuff compared to bilateral. Just from the way the weight room is organized. like kind of the way we structured workouts. You know, we do a lot more like 4-day-a-week workouts where, you know, with stuff at Jewell, we were a lot of 3-day tier just based on our student athlete schedules. That was kind of what worked for us. So just figuring out how to balance the programming and pair exercises and do all that has been probably the biggest part of the learning curve for me so far. When it comes to technique of exercises, like being on the floor, like coaching, still coaching, like that part's been really, really simple and easy for me. I mean, we hammer technique just like we would at Jewell. So that part's been pretty simple, I guess. But one thing that one aspect, I guess, that I thought a little bit coming from, you know, a more traditional training background, back squat, power clean, all that stuff, is I thought there might be kind of a drop of like weight room energy, if you know what I mean. Like we're not getting hyped up for a max back squat day because we're not necessarily doing that. But I can't say that I've seen that at all. Like these guys still absolutely get after it on a trap bar or on their single leg, you know, split squat variants. Like these guys are challenging each other and guys are getting in each other's ear and yelling and hyping them up. Like none of that aspect has dissipated at all in this different training style, I guess, which was honestly one of my bigger concerns. And like I said, a lot of people get kind of hung up on the single leg training as like saying that bilateral training is bad, and I don't feel like that's how we're approaching it at all. It's you know, we're still getting really heavy with trap bar deadlifts. Like we're still training bilaterally heavy belt squats. I mean, these guys are loading up 4 or 5 plates on this belt squat and moving it fast. I feel like we're still getting that bilateral training effect. I feel like we're doing it in a safer way for like our whole population. Because there's a lot of, I mean, I know you and I have talked about this a little bit just with our own training, where we were starting to shy away from back squats a little bit because it just seemed like no matter how locked in our form was, our back was always starting to kind of get irritated. And so I know there's a lot of people that come in with pre-existing issues where it may not be the back squats that are causing the problem, but they might be highlighting it. So I feel like if there's any chance that we could kind of move away from that a little bit and just protect those people with a little less axial loading and, you know, kind of doing things the way we do with the single leg stuff and belt squats, I have a really hard time seeing how that's a bad thing.
Yeah. No, a lot of great insight. And I want to kind of stick with the same theme. Maybe Alli, talk a little bit about, you know, the onboarding process. So obviously I lost my GA in Miles and I'm going to be hiring a new one here pretty soon. And I want to make sure that I'm welcoming him into our culture and my system as efficient and thorough as possible. So maybe talk a little bit about how you went about getting Miles up to speed, and then Miles, maybe also talk a little bit about some struggles you had in that process or things that went differently than you might have thought. Just any insight both of you might have on that topic.
Yeah, so the background that he had with you, kind of getting there and pretty much immediately into the fire, pretty par for course here also. He did a really good job, but you know, he got here a week into the semester and the football was on a 3-week program, so they'd already been introduced to it. They were on week 2. I led everything week 1 for, like, you know, to introduce him and kind of let him get a feel for kind of how things are done up here and how the guys are, and, you know, that kind of thing. Just learning names on its own is a huge job, let alone trying to learn names and coordinate everything. So led everything from speed to the lift, the pre-talk, post-talks, and the second week I kind of started to kind of turn him loose a little bit. I was more of the observer. I had him lead, and now he's rolling with it, and he's doing a really good job. Like I said, I think that maybe his background of being tossed into some of those uncomfortable situations helped him, but like that's just the reality of this field. Hires and fires happen really quick, and it's a very fast turnover. So to be able to have that adaptability has been huge for both of us, I think. I wrote out a couple things. Like I wrote out their exercise progression, regressions, kind of like some templates for him to go off of, guideline type things to go off of. I guess probably, at least from what I've seen, the least smooth it's been is when he was trying to figure out Excel after coming back from Team Builder. But we got that figured out. I mean, that was pretty minor. So to be honest with you, I've been really surprised on how on the same page, we've been. I've talked to Coach Jones out of App State a lot because he's going through, he's got new staff also, and he's like, man, just little things that you take for granted. An example that he gave me is people wanted to do Supermans as their trunk or their torso work, and it's just not that's not part of the torso training that we've done. It's it's all about protecting the spine, not trying to extend the spine or anything flex the spine too much. So just little things like that. I guess I kind of got on a tangent there. Little things like that, like I said, he's kind of just already on the same page. I showed it to him and kind of briefly hit on it, and he's like, yep. This is pretty much the same anyway. So that has been huge.
Awesome. Coach Clifton, maybe some.
Yeah. So for me,
sorry, go for it.
Still there. Okay, good. So for me, I guess kind of coming into this onboarding process, the big thing for me was, like I said, Alli had everything kind of laid out nice and neat in a little binder for me where I could actually have some hard copy templates and stuff laid out that I could take a look at and study a little bit to kind of get caught up to speed. And that whole first week, I was an observer as much as anything. Still getting in, like I said, coaching up technique, energy, effort, that kind of stuff. You can kind of hop in right away. But as far as learning the system, I was able to just kind of sit back and observe. And a big thing for me at that time, too, was it freed me up to learn athletes' names, which was kind of my primary focus, to be honest, for that first week. I was more concerned with getting to know the guys because it's a lot more powerful when you can call people by name whenever you go to coach them. It's just that much more personal, and I think they respond to you a lot better. So I think that's been pretty big for the transition. I feel like I've developed a pretty good relationship especially with the football team, because we work with them 4 days a week, maybe a little more so than some of the other teams. But I feel like that relationship developed pretty quick where I've been able to kind of hit the ground running ever since then. So never discount something as simple as learning an athlete's name. Trying to think here, lose my train of thought a little bit. So I mean that was just the big thing, being able to sit back for that first week and just analyze things as they went. But the other big thing that we've done that I think has been really helpful to me is we don't seem to get a whole lot of office work done because we seem to be having a lot of conversations, which is a good thing. I think I've been able to ask a lot of questions, and we'll sit for an hour or two at a time, in between groups, and just kind of talk through the training process and what we believe, and kind of getting on the same page there. I feel like we've had a lot of really good conversations here over the first 3 weeks that I've been here that have really helped kind of catch me up to speed too. So I can't discount that at all. That's probably been as big a help to me in this process as anything.
Awesome. A lot of good stuff there from both of you. Both of you share on this one as well. What is something you are excited about learning and improving on in the next year as a coach? I know you both are big on continuing education, so what are maybe things you're trying to dive into here in the next year or so?
For me, I'm really starting to get into kind of the high-low training system models as far as the weight room stuff goes. And then there's a lot of really good stuff being done with some change of direction where maybe it's not as predictable as it is right now, at least here for us. Trying to find ways to maybe integrate that into the program a little bit where now you have a guy standing in the middle of the room and, you have to react to a coach's call on what you got here coming up. But those are two things for me, I guess, that I'm starting to kind of dive more into.
Yeah, the big one for me right now, and this is something that I wanted to get more into while I was at Jewell too, but it was kind of difficult for us just logistically. It was hard to get a lot of like speed work in with our teams. Football we were always able to, basketball a little bit in preseason, volleyball in the off season, but just the way our weight room's set up and some of the facilities that we've basically got 30 minutes at the start of every lift that we can have athletes on the turf and doing some kind of speed, change of direction, plyo work. So I really want to start to focus some more of my efforts there, diving into more elite halves, speed development stuff, and just kind of learning some of the cues and some of the principles and philosophies, I guess, that he uses to train that stuff. I mean, he's one of the best. I mean, he's kind of a legend in the industry as far as that goes. So I definitely want to start diving into more of his stuff and being able to take advantage of, the space and time that we do have to train that stuff with our teams and start to implement that a little bit more.
Awesome. And maybe both of you as well, what are some of your favorite professional development resources that you think have really shaped your training or your coaching, or something you took a lot from, whether it's books, articles, podcasts, whatever it might be? What are some of your go-to resources?
I think we'll probably agree that Elon Sports Performance is doing a really good job out there.
Guys are awesome.
Nick DeMarco out there running that show, and they've got some really good content that they put up, daily. It's just a gold mine of stuff on their social media pages, so that's a go-to for me. Corey Van Wyk at Northwestern out over in Orange City, Iowa, he's doing a really good job. He just put out a huge YouTube link of kind of that change of direction stuff I was talking about. And then, the Old Reliable, the books, some of like the Simply Faster articles, things like that.
Yeah, kind of echo all that. All that same stuff, obviously. Social media is a big one, and as from the stuff I found, Elon's probably doing as good a job as anybody at putting out really high quality content. I'm a big podcast guy. I don't know, we listen to enough music in the weight room throughout the course of the day that it's kind of nice to break it up whenever you're in the vehicle with something other than just the same hip-hop song that you've heard for the 300th time. So podcasts are big for me. Some big ones like Barbell Shrugged, Barbell Life, Travis Mash, Iron Game Chalk Talk, DeFranco's Industrial Strength Show. Those are kind of some big ones that I have on rotation quite a bit. Big Time Strength, obviously.
Of course.
Podcasts are huge for me. And then, like I said, I don't know that anybody in the field can really get away with not reading some of the big, your essentials books, your Joe Kinn's Strength Coach Playbook. Some of that stuff, you've got to dig into some of that time-tested, proven stuff. But podcasts are kind of huge for me right now. So
awesome, guys. This has been great. I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to spend some time with us. We're going to wrap it up. I've got 4 quick questions. We'll go Alli, then Miles in that order. Just kind of give me your first quick answer. What is your favorite office snack?
Favorite office snack, lemon Lara bars.
There you go.
Tough to beat.
And anybody that knows me, this won't surprise them, but anything with peanut butter. A lot of times I literally just eat it by the spoonful, so big peanut butter guy.
All right, 15 minutes to train for yourself working out. What are you doing?
Oh, man. You know what? I'm probably hitting up some split squats and some hamstring work, and then maybe a little prowler push at the end.
Yeah, for me, if I'm kind of condensed on time like that, I really like barbell complexes. You can get a conditioning effect, you can get a strength effect, hypertrophy, whatever. You can really tailor those to do just about anything. So barbell complexes would be my go-to.
Most influential person in your life. It doesn't have to be necessarily coaching, but just overall, one of the most influential persons in your life.
Jeff Jones, director at App State.
For me, it probably have to be my dad. Just he's kind of taught me everything I know about life in general and being a man. He's a great one to look to. So.
All right, last one I got for you. Give me a small school coach, one or two that you think's doing a great job and deserves a shout out.
Like I said, Corey Van Wyk out in Orange City is doing a really, really good job. He's been a good resource. If I reach out to him, he'll get back to me quick, and he'll get back to me with a lot of good information. So I appreciate him a lot. He's doing a great job.
Yeah, so for me, I know these guys aren't necessarily small school strength coaches, but all the assistant coaches out at Harvard, they're not the big names out there right now, but Tim Mullen, Luke Osberg, Beth Lazarus, and Emily Sargent, those guys were so awesome for me this last summer. Like, you want to talk about like a group of people who just genuinely care about their athletes and work their butts off. Like, those guys out there are awesome. So shout out to all of those guys. But also, not that you're going to enjoy this, but I don't feel like enough people talk about you and the job that you're doing. Like this podcast. And the biggest thing I probably took away from you whenever I was working with you was like, you are always, your motor's constantly going on like some way to improve, not just to you yourself personally, but trying to figure out a way to make your program better for your athletes. Like, it was almost exhausting. We'd come back from breaks and you had like 5 new things that you wanted to try that you'd been thinking about over break, and made me feel terrible because I'd kind of checked out for a week. But yeah, I think you're doing a great job. Always looking to push the envelope and figure out ways to get better. Really humble in that aspect, and yeah, you're the man.
Well, I appreciate that. I'll send a check in your mail for that endorsement you just gave me. I appreciate it. Both you guys, this has been great. I've got 2 pages of notes. I took a lot from it and hope our listeners did as well. I will put both your contact info on there and encourage our listeners to reach out to both of you, and because you guys are both are doing an absolutely amazing job, and just good luck the rest of the spring here and as you transition this summer, and I hope everything goes well for you.
Yeah, thank you, Coach. Good luck to you too.
Thanks, Gage.